On today's show, Jakub Vrana made the team.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minutecast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about Jakub Vrana is making the team. Yes, the guy that has made his return back to the Capitals, the big player from the 2018 Stanley Cup winning Capitals. He did the unthinkable in a lot of ways and came to the team on a professional tryout. He made the roster. I'll talk about that a little bit later. I will talk about Andrew Cristall, who is being returned back to the Kelowna Rockets. And ultimately, why did they do that? And what's behind that? And what is the long-term plan for Andrew Cristall? I'll talk about that. And a little bit later, we'll talk about Ryan Leonard's outlook at Boston College and where he fits into the Capitals' master plans. But just to get it going here, that was the big news that broke this morning, was that Jakub Vrana will be joining the Capitals this season. Came in on a professional tryout and earned a job on the team. A lot of the players that have been here for quite some time, Tom Wilson in particular, said that he was pulling for him and was happy that he joined the team. This was something that I spoke about 10 days ago on this podcast, that I thought that he was the front runner to get the job. And why did I think that? And I'll talk about Cristall a little bit later, is ultimately he's the perfect fit. He's at this point of his career where it seems like the perfect situation for him. And he is going to be most likely that extra skater for the Capitals, a guy that you can call into the lineup when needed. Or if they're just looking for a fresh look out there, he could go in place of someone like Sonny Milano. Or if Sonny Milano doesn't really bring it, there is always the option of Jakub Vrana taking that position over. So nothing is set in stone, even though that the playing field is kind of laid out in front of us. We kind of see the lay of the land and who's going to be in the lineup on opening night. An exciting day for Jakub Vrana, that is for sure. And all things considered, as a Capitals fan, I am very excited that he's getting this opportunity. Again, when you look at Miro, when you take a look at Cristall, he was the perfect person to fill that role, considering that the Capitals were only going with 1 extra forward and 2 extra blue liners. So it is all a perfect match here. But talking about Vrana's return to the Capitals, Vrana received positive news on Monday as he learned that he had successfully made it through the final round of roster cuts and would be rejoining the Capitals, the place where it all started for Jakub Vrana. It's a real kind of sweet moment in his life, an about face that, he faced some troubled waters, if you will, when he left the Capitals and kind of bumpy road in his NHL and AHL career. He's coming back to where it all started, and I, for one, am very excited about it. Vrana, who started his career with the Capitals, has always felt a deep connection to the team and will be returning to the roster. So excitement, and we see how it's all going to shake out now. There are not a lot of questions as far as the roster, the lineup is concerned. That was the last big question. was that third line left wing. Who was going to get that job? And again, he is the perfect candidate for that. Now, next season, that's a different story. I do believe that next season, after this season, will be the season for Andrew Cristall. And if not, say he takes a step back for some reason, then most likely will play with the Hershey Bears. But I expect if he grows his game, if he makes improvement, that he will be ready. But that is for later in the show. We're talking about Vrana right now. Very excited that he is getting this opportunity, and all things considered, he deserves it. And he's getting paid $775,000. It's some bargain shopping. It's not having to pay a guy a lot of money for some much needed depth. Talking about the coach's perspective on Vrana's return, head coach Spencer Carberry sees Vrana's return as more than just a sentimental moment. It reflects Vrana's hard work and commitment. Carberry commended Vrana's positive attitude, work ethic, and impressive performance during training camp. He emphasized Vrana's potential contributions to the team and expressed pride in his competitive spirit and overall demeanor throughout the camp. And he never let the competition stand in his way. He was never overwhelmed by the situation. And there were points in this professional trial where it seemed a little bit bleak for him, that there were points that Spencer Carberry said that it is make or break for Jakub Vrana in this next game. He better bring it, or it could spell the end of his time with the Capitals in this whole PTO experience. But he was up for the challenge, was acknowledged by Spencer Carberry as taking great steps forward. Just a really feel-good story about a guy that's put in the work and a guy that is quite familiar to this Capitals organization. So a big day for him, and it's going to be interesting to see how much work he actually gets put in, how much time is he going to spend as a healthy scratch, and how that will all cycle through. But getting into more of the particulars as far as his contract is concerned, according to Puckpedia, Vrana has signed a 1-year, one-way contract worth the league minimum of $775,000 to rejoin the team that selected him in the first round of the 2014 draft. He is set to be included in the team's opening night roster, which has officially been confirmed as of 5 p.m. Eastern. Now, if he's on the ice, that remains to be seen. Is it going to be Milano in? Is it going to be Vrana in there? I guess it remains to be seen. And that's just, different situations. You could plug and play him with different left wings up and down the lineup as well. But I do expect that he will get some work in here. It's just going to be interesting to see how much time he actually gets out on the ice. Talking about Vrana's performance and position on the team, Vrana earned a spot on the team's extra forward for the upcoming season after a successful professional trial with the Caps during the training camp. His strong performance during the preseason, which included a goal, an assist, and 11 shots over 3 games, and also the need for speed. He is a fast skater. He checks a lot of the boxes that the Capitals are looking for, especially with a quote-unquote depth move. Impressed the team's management and coaching staff. As a result, he secured his place on the roster, beating out other candidates for the position that I'll talk about later in this episode. But he put the work in, and that is ultimately why he's in the position that he's in. And hosting this show, I get a lot of different comments coming to me from YouTube and Twitter, those kind of things. And not everyone was in love with the idea of Vrana. Some people thought it would be Miro. Some people like Cristall, but Vrana put the work in, and ultimately that is why he's at where he's at. Talking about Vrana's thoughts on returning to the Capitals. For Vrana, getting a second chance with the Caps means a lot to him as he looks to resurrect his career. He expressed his excitement about the opportunity to play in the league and be part of a familiar team, emphasizing his strong connection with many individuals in the organization. And kind of an intangible, something that's not easily quantifiable, is I think that it was a move that was also made based on familiarity. And I think he is a good guy in the locker room. And I know that being a good guy in the locker room is not something that shows up on the back of your hockey card. But Tom Wilson said that he lights up the room every time he sees him showing up at practice or in the weight room or in the locker room, that there is a certain value to that, and also a sentimental value, which, a lot of people are going to say, damn, that's ridiculous. There's no such thing as a sentimental value. There is. I think that this is a team that is in transition. And you're starting to see a guy, for example, you take a look at TG Oshie, who was a big guy in the locker room, for example. He is no longer on this team, or he is at least starting the season on the LTIR. Very vocal. He was loved as much in the locker room as he was on the ice. You take a look at Nick Backstrom stepping away from hockey indefinitely. You take a look at Evgeny Kuznetsov, no longer on the team, that I think to a certain extent that holds at least some value. Now, the play on the ice, that is of paramount importance, of course, but there is still some value in the fact that he's likable, that there's that familiarity, and that they accomplished a lot of things together. And kind of to exemplify what I was talking about with the presser with Jakub Vrana, there were a lot of questions asking about, hey, have you talked with Wilson? Have you talked with Ovechkin about the 2018 team? And they said, yeah, a little bit. And it brought up some good memories. And I think that, for guys like Wilson and Ovechkin to have a familiar face, to bring back a player that I think was loved by his fellow teammates and the coaches and the fans for that matter, that is something that holds value as well. So it's not necessarily about, is he the best goal scorer, or is he the best this or the best that? He has a lot of different things that you can quantify, and some things that aren't as easily quantifiable. Talking about teammates' reactions to Vrana's return. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Tom Wilson praised Vrana, describing him as a great kid and expressing that the team was rooting for him throughout the camp. He highlighted Vrana's positive impact on the team and his growth as a player and a person, expressing pride in his achievements and hoping that he can contribute to the team's success. So a likable guy, a feel-good story for the Capitals, to be sure. And you take a look at it, the ball's kind of in his court. I'm going to make a really early prediction here. And I'm going to say that he will play the 1 year on the Capitals, but next season will be the season for Andrew Cristall. Signed that 1 year deal, $775,000. Fits the role this year for the team. Or I guess, Vrana could be on the team in years to come as more of a depth role. But this season right now, I see him playing a huge role. I would say next season, it looks to be the season for Andrew Cristall. And coming up here after the break, we will talk about Andrew Cristall, a bit of a bittersweet moment for the team today. There's some good, there's some bad, and it just kind of depends on how you want to look at it. I'll talk about the Cristall situation and how he figures to be in the Capitals' long-term plans straight ahead. Hey, NFL fans, you can start this season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And listen, guys, there is a lot of football that's played on any given Sunday or Thursday or Monday, and some of the games that you're a little bit more into. Maybe you're more into the Commanders game or the Ravens game, but there is a lot of other football being played, and there is still a reason to be into these games. Open up the FanDuel app, put a little bit of money on the game. All of a sudden, these games get that much more exciting. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So one of the things I did today is I went on my lunch break today at work and shot a video, kind of a midday update, updating everyone on the Capitals. If you would like to see more videos like that, exclusive video footage, midday updates, YouTube videos, short form audio podcasts, and all of those kind of things, join the Locked On Capitals Insiders. Check the link in the show description. All right, in this next segment here, we're going to talk about the future of Andrew Cristall. Kind of a bittersweet moment for me. I understand what went behind it. And when I say the good part of it, of course, was that Jakub Vrana joined the team a little bit somber, a little bit disappointed, I guess, that Andrew Cristall did join the team. But watching the presser with Spencer Carberry, I understand. And I understood before I saw the presser. It is ultimately why I made my prediction 10 days ago why Vrana should join the team and why Cristall might not, and how my view changed once I found out that they went with 2 defenders and only 1 forward, that Vrana seemed like to be the guy. But talking about Cristall now in particular, and one of the things that Spencer Carberry said is that is Andrew, is he going to be best served playing on this team, on the Capitals, the big team, playing 7 minutes a night? Or would he be better served playing in Kelowna, where he's going to get a whole lot more playing time? He said something similar about Ivan Miroshnichenko as well, that these guys are not at the point in their career that they should be the healthy scratch like Jakub Vrana is going to be. I hate to say it about Jakub Vrana, but that is kind of where he's at in his career. He's a guy that had really high hopes with the Capitals, moved to a couple different teams, spent some time in the AHL, and is trying to turn his career around. But you take a look at Cristall in particular, at only 19 years old, having him spend a lion's share of his time being a healthy scratch does not seem to be what the doctor ordered. And furthermore, when we're talking about the entry level deal and all those kind of things, is that he could not play more than 9 games on the team. Otherwise, it would affect all of that. So I think there was never really a point that there was any grand plans of having Andrew Cristall on the team, the Capitals, for the entire season. I think that ultimately one of the scenarios would be that we could get a look at him for 9 games and then he would go to Kelowna. But would that make sense to have cut ties with Jakub Vrana? Then what are you going to do? I mean, I guess you could have called someone up from Hershey. That is why Jakub Vrana was the perfect match in that situation. And that is ultimately why Cristall is better served playing in Kelowna. Ultimately, he would be better playing in Hershey, but we know that that is not even an option. So him going back to Kelowna and working on his game, we saw his game grow by leaps and bounds. And one of the things that Spencer Carberry said is that he thought that Cristall's game amongst those younger players stood out the most. And I think to a certain extent took a lot of them by surprise, as his skating and his size was one of the things that was held against him. His skating has improved a lot. We saw a lot of bursts of speed and energy, and that is one thing that's changed. One of the things that he could continue to work on is bulk up, as we saw him get pushed off the puck a little bit in different situations. Those are all things that you can work on. Put on some lean muscle mass, hit the gym a little bit more so you're not so easily driven off the puck. But Cristall, all things considered, he should hold his head up high, as he played very, very well. And it's my hunch right now, as I record this, that he will be playing on the Capitals next season. Book it. I really do believe it. But talking about his time with the Capitals, just has been a really steady presence for the Capitals in the preseason and these preseason games. There is a lot for him to be happy about. But talking next year about his reassignment, the Capitals made that difficult decision to inform Andrew Cristall that he would not be a part of the team after an impressive performance during training camp. Despite his standout showing, the Capitals assigned Cristall back to the WHL's Kelowna Rockets, as he is not yet eligible to play in the AHL. Along with Ivan Miroshnichenko, who was loaned to Hershey, Cristall was among the final cuts of the camp. Did his level best. And again, there was that outside possibility that he would join the roster for 9 games. That didn't really seem like the right idea. We got a good look. We got a good assessment. We got a good read on where Andrew Cristall's development is at. I think that if he can continue on this trajectory that he's on and show growth with Kelowna this season, he will be full go for the Capitals next season. Talking about those reasons for reassignment, though, despite Cristall's impressive performance, Coach Carberry believes that he will benefit more from another year in juniors rather than staying in the NHL. Citing his tenacity, work ethic, speed, and shot, Carberry emphasized that there are many other factors to consider in Cristall's development, and it's crucial for him to receive significant playing time on a consistent basis. That's the same thing that goes for Ivan Miroshnichenko as well, is that they need to see real reps. They're at the point of their career where they're ready to burst to the next level. We don't want to stunt or stymie that growth by having them be a healthy scratch on any given night. But talking about his long-term development, the Capitals are prioritizing Cristall's long-term development, aiming for him to increase his size and strength before making a full-time transition to the physicality-demanding NHL. Carberry stressed the importance of Cristall being in the lineup every night and having the chance to play on the power play. Ultimately, Washington is prioritizing Cristall's long-term development, and at present, that entails another standout year at the junior level before stepping into the NHL spotlight. The right move to make. Now, the caveat, the exception to this would be is had they decided to go with one extra defender and two forwards, then I could see a situation where maybe the Capitals wanted to go all in and wanted to get a look at him for the full season, not just playing the 9 games, but just not worrying about his entry-level deal and just being fully engaged with going in this direction. I don't think it's the right idea. I still think he can work on his game some, and based on the moves that BMAC made this past offseason, I think the Capitals are in a good position. You take a look at Vrana, it was only a 1-year deal. At the end of the year, depending on how Vrana does, I could see a plug and play with Andrew Cristall and also with Sonny Milano as well. Of course, something would have to happen with him as well. How are these players going to perform? I guess it's, we haven't even played the first game of the regular season. Let's see how Milano does. Let's see how Vrana does. But my hunch is that it is going to be Andrew Cristall's season next season. And it's taken that step in that direction as we see McMichael, we see Lapierre. I could see Miro joining the team here soon as well. A lot of intriguing storylines to follow. And we're ultimately at the end of the day pulling for Andrew Cristall. We'll make sure and chart his progress playing with Kelowna. All right, so coming up here after the break, I'll talk about Ryan Leonard's outlook and future on the Capitals. I have quite a hot take on the whole situation. I'll discuss straight ahead. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. So if you are involved in the HR, if you are involved in the hiring and the firing, you need Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/locked-on. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on right now and support our show by saying you heard about it on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire. You need Indeed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we're talking about futures in this episode. I talked about Cristall and when we can expect to see him, but another player that is poised to do truly great things for the Capitals next season is going to be Ryan Leonard. And it was one of those situations where he had a hard time making a decision. Is he going to join the Capitals at the tail end of last season? Was he going to join the Capitals to start this season? We know that he created a list and weighed the pros and cons and involved his brother in the whole process and making the decision. Should he join the Capitals this season, or should he spend one other season playing for Boston College? And at the end of the day, I know it's going to sound a little bit funny, but let's consider how old he is that he wants to help Boston College win a championship. He wants another crack at the championship with Boston College. doing this show, and I'm sure a lot of you that are listening or watching this would think, hey, what is that all about? Who cares? Let's help the Capitals. Consider how old he is at the end of the day, and you can't really fault him as he is going to be working on his game. But talking about his development and what is next, talking about Ryan Leonard will be playing for the Boston College Eagles, announced that he would be one of their alternate captains for the upcoming 24-25 NCAA season. The team is gearing up for their season opener against Michigan State Spartans at the Munn Ice Arena. Leonard, who had an outstanding freshman year, setting a school record for most goals by a freshman with 31, is returning for his sophomore year. Eamon Powell, a graduate defenseman, has been chosen as BC's captain, and seniors Connor Joyce and Mike Posma will serve as the alternate captains alongside Leonard. This is going to be quite a Boston College hockey team, to be sure, and it's going to be interesting to see what they have. If you take a look at it, it is quite some elite company that there is at Boston College, which in a lot of ways is kind of a hockey bed at the end of the day. Talking about Leonard's debut season, in his debut season with the Eagles, Leonard racked up an impressive 60 points with 31 goals and 29 assists in just 40 games. He ended the season at the NCAA's third highest goal scorer. Boston College reached the national title game, but suffered a 2-0 defeat to the Denver Pioneers. And you want to take, and I'm going to look in my crystal ball way into the future, and this might surprise some people, but I don't think it'll surprise a whole lot of people, is where does Ryan Leonard fit in the Capitals lineup? It's quite an easy conclusion to draw. We know that Andrew Mangiapane is going right now, this coming season, is going to be that first line right wing. He is only under contract for this season, and then he will be a free agent. My hunch is that Mangiapane will play one season with the Capitals this season, that Ryan Leonard, he'll be ready to join the big team of the Capitals next year and will assume that position. Because if you take a look at it, I don't see Ryan Leonard being the third line right wing or the fourth line right wing. And, is he going to bump Tom Wilson out of some sort of position? I see Ryan Leonard being a premier talent and a guy that is going to take on a big job with the Capitals in a hurry. So that is my hunch. That is me looking into my crystal ball for the Capitals and saying that Andrew Mangiapane plays one season with the Capitals this season. They don't sign any sort of an extension because they will be full in on Ryan Leonard. You take a look at it. If you listen to this whole show, the first segment, can you imagine Cristall, Ryan Leonard? This team is going to be one to be reckoned with in years to come, and maybe not even years, maybe next year. Talking about the 2025 season expectation, BC's roster will feature 3 returning All-Americans, including Leonard, his line mate Gabe Perreault, and goaltender Jakub Fowler. The team is anticipated to be top contenders in 2025, especially with the addition of James Higgins, the projected number 1 overall pick in 2025 NHL draft, will be joining Leonard and Perreault's line. Wow, if you can find a way to watch some of Boston College hockey this season, do it. I think it's going to be worth it. I know that there's a lot of Capitals fans and NHL fans, but just looking at the roster, that is going to be some amazing hockey being played at Boston College. This comes after Will Smith left school and signed with the San Jose Sharks during the offseason, and that's why there was a lot of speculation about Will Smith joining the Sharks. Well, Ryan Leonard joined the Capitals, and listen, he said, I am my own man. I like Will Smith. I played with Will Smith, but I don't got to do what he's doing, and I want to win a championship with Boston College. So that's where we're at with that whole situation. Talking about his decision to stay in college, Leonard faced an unexpected challenge when he had to make a decision about whether to return for another year in college. Shortly after a devastating loss to Denver, then Washington GM Brian McClellan approached Leonard to join the Capitals, but just a day after Washington secured a spot in the 2024 playoffs, the 19-year-old winger found himself in a dilemma. After seeking advice from his family, particularly his brother John, a seasoned player with an impressive number of games under his belt, Leonard ultimately chose to continue his college education. He specifically mentioned his ambition to secure a national championship and earn another World Juniors gold medal with Team USA as reasons for his stay in college. Again, I don't get it, but I do get it. I'm not that young of a man. I'm not a professional hockey player. For me, I would be all in on the NHL, the money, the fame, all the trappings that go along with it. But in his case, he is kind of a humble man and just wants to kind of take his time gradually. He wants to get that championship with Boston College and earn another World Junior gold medal. Hey, that's his prerogative, and I wish him nothing but the best. But future plans, Leonard intends for this season to be his final one in the NCAA, and once BC's season concludes, he will have the opportunity to join the Capitals by signing with him. Is that going to be possible? Absolutely. Quite often I get asked about, when do you think you see Ryan Leonard joining the team? It all depends on how Boston College plays this year. Say for some reason they don't make it to the playoffs, or say they make it to the playoffs and they get eliminated early, I could see him joining the Capitals in the playoffs this year. Yes, calling all stations, calling all cars. I think that you could have Ryan Leonard on the big team this season. It's just all going to depend on what Boston College does. I expect him to be full go with the Capitals next season. I expect to see Cristall. I expect to see Leonard. I expect this Capitals team to be one to be reckoned with. So quite a bit of excitement that surrounds the Capitals. Are you excited about this upcoming season? If you're not, you might want to check your pulse and see if you're even alive at the end of the day. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals and making it your first listen of the day. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.